Pastor Jack here, Prepared Faith. Hope you're ready for an exciting, good information coming your way type of podcast today. We've got a lot of things to go over. I've got a lot of notes here to share with you. Got lots of things to just let you know about. We are going to be talking today about practical preparedness. Man, what is that? Practical preparedness. Well, we talked about the spiritual preparedness last week and getting your mind right. Remember, your mindset gets you through the chaos and to the solution. Don't forget that. My very favorite question to you is, are you prepared? Let's start today with how important is practical preparedness? Well, man, it's everything. It's all the way from what you have in your resources to your go bag to financial to physical, spiritual, psychological. There's a lot of things that are actually in practical preparedness. The first one we're going to look at here, just to get us started, so we're going to kind of take a minute and what has happened in the world that we could be prepared for. What kind of events in history have taken place to where that we as a people can be prepared better than we are? Well, what about the pandemics? An example, COVID-19. I mean, that hit and everybody shut down, businesses shut down. We were scrambling for toilet paper, folks. So just remember, we need to be prepared for medical and, stockpiling the essentials, understanding what's happening, our hygiene practices. Dysentery could take out a lot of people. Drinking from a dirty stream or things like that could get you sick, and without, if things just went to heck in a handbasket, well, then we would know that, man, help's not coming. There's no medical assistance. So we have to be prepared for such like that. What about those natural disasters that are out there? Oh, let's look at I live down here on the Gulf Coast, and, we always get prepared for hurricanes, and then with the hurricanes come some inland tornadoes, so you have to be aware of those. You have to be ready to get through 2 or 3 days of that so that you're ready and can make it without struggling so hard. There's a lot of things that we put up. I mean, we put up water, we put up food, we buy a power generator for power. We look at boarding up the windows, and that's just for a hurricane. But then you have, what about cybersecurity? Are you prepared for that? What about if they shut down the internet and things just go south real fast and you don't have any access to your ATM, or you don't have any access to your funds or to your accounts, and everything just kind of goes black? Or maybe you've seen it on the news nowadays. You see where some of the banks have even closed their doors for a little while because of something. It could be a cyber attack. It could be, a hacker or whatever closed them down. You see big businesses that have got all this IT protocol in place for a cyber attack. So those are something that's happened, and back in history, and it could happen again. Are you financially prepared for that? What about the economy? Our country has gone through the Great Depression, and things, have gotten tough. And right now we are in a situation where going to the grocery store, food items are probably 3 times the amount they were just a year ago or less. So economic downturn. What about the possibility if you lose a job and you're without work for 2 or 3 months or so? There's just all kinds of things when it comes to the economy and when it comes to your almighty dollar. So be aware of that. Think of that. We're going to talk about some of that today. The political instability. I don't know what side of the fence you're on, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. I really don't care, but we do know that there are shenanigans going on in our government today, and some of the things that have happened, and Well, just for instance, right now, in the very first part of 2024, they've got the Epstein list has come out now, and it shows everybody that was down there on the island and all that. But there's a big creature invasion over in Miami at the mall over there, and I think we're trying to get us to look at a different spot instead of putting our attention where it really needs to be. So with the political changes and things that are in our nation today, one of the very first things I would ask you to do is make sure that you lift up our president. I don't care if you like him. I don't care if you don't. But, we talk about being spiritually prepared and physically prepared. Well, one of the spiritual things, and I believe in our hearts, we should be lifting up our country, whether you're here in the United States or over in Russia or wherever you're at. We should be looking at things that would help our higher ups, our political people, to make better decisions, and anything that's going on in the government, pay attention to that. What about the climate change? We're all looking at this warm up supposedly happened, and climate this and climate that, and we're going to drown because all the glaciers is going to melt. Well, we need to watch out for that kind of thing, and the climate. A big freeze comes and you're stuck indoors for 2 or 3 days and you can't get out. And then what about, talking about that, what about our power structure, and our infrastructure? Something goes wrong there and the grid goes down for 2 or 3 days or so. Are you ready for that? Or can you handle that? And one of the things that after that we need to really kind of consider, what about social unrest? Are you ready for a civil war in your country? Or are you ready for your neighbors to knock on the door and want all your resources? Or, people out in the streets looting and things like that, where society has just come to a point where they've just had enough and they're going to take things into their own hand, which could lead to the social unrest of your country or our country, or there's things out there that are happening today that may possibly set people off to a point where it comes to a social unrest. And then, of course, we talk about all the time, we talk about that big EMP that might happen, or mass coronal ejection from the sun, and all our technology shuts down. So are you prepared for a technology crisis in your life? So anyway, so those are some of the things that, have the possibility are happening or has happened, or so those are things just to think about. Well, what are some of the misconceptions that when we talk about our physical preparedness, what are some of the misconceptions? Well, one of them is the fact that I don't need to be prepared. Emergencies don't happen to me. Well, granted, that may be true, but emergencies can happen to anybody. What about the misconception is emergency services are going to be here to help me in the event of a disaster. Red Cross, Salvation Army, FEMA, all those people are going to show up, so I'm okay. Well, remember, folks, those people are in the same situation you are. If the roads are blocked from down trees and everything, and they can't get to you for 2 or 3 days, then that's just the way it is. So you have to be prepared to physically take care of yourself during that time. And sometimes they talk about the misconception of preparedness, or being a prepper, whatever you want to call it, is simply just stockpiling supplies and water, food and water, and bullets, the 3 B's, beans, bandages, and beans, bullets, and band-aids is, I think, what they say. And, but it's not. Those are things that are very important to your preparedness, but that's not all of it. You have to have some other things in place to survive. And what about survival? There's a lot of misconception that, I don't know enough about survival to even help myself through these times. So, what am I going to do? Well, there's some things you can do. You can reach out to some of your local community and businesses and emergency services, and you can start getting trained. You can be skilled in some of these things that are going to happen, and be ready, be prepared. And there again, there's that question, are you prepared? Really, are you? And of course, and one misconception is the preppers are extreme and they're an isolated group of people. Well, I think that's a completely wrong statement. I think a lot of your preppers are community oriented and collaborate well with what's going on in the neighborhood or what's happening out there in the world. And then of course, you have to remember the misconception here that can get you in a lot of trouble is, well, I've got all my food and I got my resources. I'm prepared. So nothing's going to happen to me. I'm set for life. I'm ready to go. Well, you got to remember in physical preparedness, there's resources you need to circulate in and out. You need to be training on the new stuff that comes out in the world. You need to be ready for whatever might be coming your way. So it's not that you're set for life. It's that you're ready for an event. And once the event happens, then you're able to, remember our last podcast, we were talking about that spiritual preparedness. Well, that mindset again is going to help you get through all this. So you got to have a mindset. You got to be flexible. You got to be ready to go. Think on your feet. Move in the right direction. But the mindset takes you through the chaos into the solution. So don't forget that mantra or saying or whatever you want it to be. Your mindset gets you through the chaos to where you can get to the solution. All right, let's take a look at, we talk about emergency plans. Let's talk about that for a minute. What's the first thing that you need to do when you start setting up an emergency preparedness plan? One of the things is you need to asset management, assess everything that you have at the moment, decide how you're going to do this, have a communication plan in place. How are you going to communicate with your family? How are you going to communicate with even the folks that live within your home? What is the communication going to be? Well, there's several events that we talked about, hurricane, tornado, winter outages, electrical outages. How are you going to communicate? Are you going to use a WhatsApp on the phone? Are you going to use Facebook or social media at all? Are you just going to use verbal or just how it is? The main thing that we need to convey is communication and how you're going to accomplish that. If things go down, maybe you've got a couple of little radios. I know I've got some of the little VHF radios that I can give one to my wife, one to me, and we can connect, keep in communication with those radios. That is, of course, if the technology, an EMP happens, then they may be fried, unless, of course, you've got them in a Faraday cage or something like that. So remember that part of getting the effective emergency plan. And what about emergency contacts? Make a card, stick it in your pocket, because you never know what event might happen. Maybe a car accident where you're immobilized and you can't voice who to contact. Place it right there. Put a card or something on with your driver's license in your wallet that says, in case of emergency, contact your wife or your son or whoever you want to be contacted, so that they can let them know that you're in a situation where you can't get in touch with them, but you may be in the hospital or maybe in a coma after a car wreck or something like that. So you want to be prepared that way to let other people know. And then, of course, if you're making a preparedness plan, you need to, what about an evacuation? Are you set up for an evacuation plan? Have you decided, if there's a fire, we're going to go out this window, or if a hurricane comes, we're going to take this route out, or, and then once you establish those routes, establish a plan B for those routes. Make sure that if the traffic backs up to a certain point, then you know how to get around that and keep going. It's very important that you always are moving forward. Remember that mindset through the chaos into the solution. Move forward, even with your mindset. Make sure in your preparedness that you have an emergency kit. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But that emergency kit, so you can, have it medical in case you get a cut or a wound, or need some sutures or whatever it may be, but you need at least some essential stuff such as water, non-perishable food, first aid supplies, flashlight, batteries, and important documents. Don't forget your documents, folks. If something happens and you lose them, you will never have them again unless you can go back to government and receive them from their storage. But what if their storage is bad? So just make sure you keep your documents safe, waterproof them, laminate them, whatever you need to do. Okay, here's one we need to really talk about for preparedness, your financial preparedness. What if the ATM goes down? What if the internet's down and plastic doesn't work? Do you have something? What about economy collapse and the dollar has no value anymore? Are you ready for stuff like that? Identify and ensure that you have access to some type of emergency funds. Whether you keep $100 under your bed or extra $100 in your wallet or $1,000 in your safe at home, I don't know what it is. And see, I can't tell you exactly what you need. This is where you have to look at things and, I guess, come up with a plan, you might say. That's exactly what we're talking about. Being prepared, coming up with a plan for preparedness. Talk about home safety in your plan. Make sure your home is safe. Even during the time that you're going to be trying to maybe evacuate, or if you're going to bug in, as they say, try to get some things in place that your home will be safe. And don't forget about the children and the pets. One thing a lot of grown-ups do, and I've been guilty of this myself, is we forget to let our children in on what's going on and what's prepared. I know I've got a 4-year-old granddaughter, and she's smart. I mean, you can tell her something, and it may be something that you don't think she's going to remember, but later on in the day, or later in the week or the month or whatever, she'll bring that back up to you. And so even if they're small, you may not give all the details, but at least let them in on what you're doing. Say, we're getting prepared in case something bad happens. So they'll know what to do. They'll know who to trust, where to go in case you're separated, things like that. Talk about your neighborhood. What are your plans for your neighborhood? If you live in an apartment complex, do you know any of your neighbors at all? Have you come up with a plan for the apartment complex? What's going to happen if such and such happens? These are all things, you have to run several different scenarios over in your head to ever get all of them. And then I'm probably going to be safe to say that you will never be prepared for everything. That's why it's so important to be adaptable and flexible when you're planning things and planning stuff up. And that brings us to another one, our adaptability and review. Be adaptable in your plans. Make sure that you can change plans in midstream. And then once you get a plan in place that you think is good for your family and good for you and good for the community and everything, review that plan. Review that plan at least twice a year. Try to enact or rehearse or move that plan. Just be sitting around the TV or something. Tornado, and see what everybody does. What are we going to do if the tornado comes? Or they just announced we're having a hurricane. What are we going to do? So run those scenarios through, act them out, move forward on them, and review what happens. And that's a part of being adaptable and ready to go. Always be, in your preparedness plan, have a way to keep up with the weather, especially with hurricanes and tornadoes and a windstorm or a snowstorm or something. They have a little battery operated radio that you can crank, or a crank radio, I guess you say, not necessarily battery, but you can crank it up and listen to a couple different stations and have the weather station and stuff like that. So be aware of the weather around you and any type of notifications that the government's putting out. Governmental, if we have some kind of turmoil or whatever, they'll put out these emergency broadcast things. And so you want to be able to listen to those and stay informed about what's going on around you, whether it be weather or political or notification from local sheriff's office or whatever it may be. And then take in consideration the specialty needs of family members. Do you have anyone with diabetes? Do you have anyone that needs oxygen? Do you have anyone that needs a wheelchair, crutches, things like that? These all have to be implemented into your preparedness plan to move forward and not leave anybody behind. Because that emergency kit or go bag needs to have, say for instance, you have a diabetic in the family. You need some way to take the insulin with you or whatever, or special diet that people may have. So you need to be aware of those things and put those in your preparedness plan. Make a spot for them. Make a spot for each individual member of your family and what may be, important to them. And so that way you need to have that special consideration there, knowing that I've got someone that needs some special care. And then don't forget about the legal considerations. What about your wills, power of attorneys, guardianships, things like that will help you to move the family along in case something really tragic happens. Okay, well, let's talk about family now. Let's talk about the discussion and the importance of communication and family involvement in planning. Remember that we have most of the time more than one person in the family. Now, if you're solo, you can pretty well just make your preparedness and your plan for yourself and what's going on. But if you're a dad and a mom, you need to consider things that about maybe you've got younger children, maybe you've got maybe your parents live with you and you're taking care of them. Those are all things that need to be coordinated and some type of unity plan put together to take care of them and make sure that everyone in the family is on the same page and knows what to do during any type of emergency. It fosters a sense of unity and coordination, and it's going to reduce a lot of the confusion and panic that may set in case of this event, in case of some kind of emergency comes along. And don't forget to talk about a rapid response. Your communication should already be known so that you can communicate it quickly and accurately. Family members need to be able to act promptly when they see that there's an event going on. So they need to be well informed about whatever situation they may be put in and what steps to take in that. Evacuation planning. Do you have an evacuation plan? We talked about that just a few minutes ago. And in that planning, it's essential to devise and execute some type of evacuation plans, whether it's evacuating out of your house and meeting at a meetup point, or evacuating from a hurricane or a storm and having to move 200 or 300 miles inland or something like that. Don't forget to support each other and reassure each other as you're putting all this together. Open communication provides emotional support and the reassurance during stressful times. I don't want to try to hide something from one of my family members, one of my loved ones. I want them to be aware of everything I'm aware of so we can, conquer that event together. So remember to support and reassure each other, and knowing that everyone is involved, and the planning process can reduce a lot of anxiety and fear that you may have or some of your family members may have. So remember all that, and remember we talked about identifying the special needs. We need to make sure there's any special needs of our family members. Is there any special need in case you're on the third floor and their fire breaks out and the stairwell's closed or the elevator's not working? How are you going to get out? So those are kind of some special things that you have to take in consideration, the special needs that you may have from the place where you live. Are you on the ground floor? Are you in a penthouse suite? Or what's going to happen? Is there two stairwells, or if there's only one stairwell? So be aware of those things and any type of special needs, whether it's your family members or whether it's your actual place of your abode, I guess you could say, your home, medical conditions, mobility challenges. Those are things that you need to talk about. And then, of course, we talked about financial before, but what about our resources? What about our allocations? What do we got? In case of a fire, can we take any of that with us? If there's a storm, do we bug in or do we bug out? Do we take things with us? Do we use things up as we go? Plan these accordingly in your preparedness plan. How are these resources going to be distributed among the family? If you've got a 30-day supply of something, can you stretch it to a 60-day supply if you have to? So these are things that, have some kind of map, I guess you would say, or an outline of how you're going to move these resources from being just a stockpile into being used as your family needs them. Make sure your children understand. If you've got 3 or 4 candy bars in there for, success or reward for something in your go bag or whatever, make sure that they understand that those are in there for a purpose and they're not just to be given out on a daily, here, have some candy type situation. And make sure, children have a limited, space to absorb things. You can tell them things, and for them to absorb it and actually know it, you need to let them know multiple times. Let them know that it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. Do some decision making with your family when you're talking about preparedness. Share with one another. I know I share with my wife, and she thinks I'm crazy about half the time, but that's okay. At least she knows where I'm at. She accused me of being a conspiracy theorist, looking at all these things that's going on. Well, I may not buy into the fact that it's, a demon or a spiritual being or a portal's been opened. But what I will buy into is the fact that a lot of times government officials will sugarcoat whatever's going on or downplay it in such a way that they want you to not be so invested in finding out exactly what went on there. One of the things that very important when you're making a prepared plan is resilience. How resilient are you? Are you going to be able to bounce back? What happens? Are you resilient enough if you lost a family member during an event that you could bounce back and help the other family members? These are things that they're tragic, yes, but you need to think about those and have an idea of what's going to happen and how you're going to handle that. Again, emergency contact information. Put a card or something in with your wallet. Put something with your child if you're going somewhere, or you got a little girl that carries a little purse. Well, put something in there, or if you got a little boy carrying a little wallet or something like that, put something in there. Let them know. And and mom and dad in your contacts, put 2 children or 3 children or 1 child or whatever, so they'll know and put their age with that. So if you first responders respond to a event in your life, whether it be a wreck or a fire or anything like that, they'll know that it's not only you, but it's your wife and 2 children. If you're in a vehicle and one gets ejected or something like that, they'll know to look. So I guess the best way to sum that up is your first responders don't know anything about you when they first get there. So the more information you can get to them, the better off you're going to be in whatever event you may be thrown into. And practice drills. Practice. Be proficient in executing your preparedness plan. Know what to do, where to go. And guys, as we move forward, let's go over some tips about creating an evacuation plan and some safe meeting point tips. First thing you want to do is you want to know your routes. Don't pick something you're not familiar with. Make sure that when you start planning an evacuation route that you're familiar with it. If you don't know it and you need to plan to go evacuate some way that you're not familiar with, make sure you go and drive that route or walk that route or whatever it is, so you can become familiar with it. You've got to know where you're going to ever get there, for sure. But you know, and consider different modes of transportation. What if you can't take your car? What if you need to use a bicycle? Or what if you need to take little kids with, you know, you may have to pull a wagon or something like that on foot. So those are things you need to do, and to understand your route. Is it going to be, if it's driving, do you have any gas stations? Do you have any places along the way you can stop? If you're walking, do you have to walk through any wetlands? Do you have to walk in the sun? Those are things that you need to kind of consider as you go forward in making your evacuation plan. Don't forget to look into emergency resources. Know, you know, what they are. Familiarize yourself with the local emergency shelters, the evacuation centers, shelters here at the fire department, things. You know, your community resources are very important when you're putting together an evacuation plan. Communication protocols. Set up some protocols. Establish a clear communication plan to stay informed. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What's involved in it? Identify a primary and secondary method for receiving information. Maybe radio's one, or maybe you might start social media may be one if you're, you know, in a place where you're just snowed in for 3 days, or, you know, radio or phone or whatever it is, you know, text message, local news, weather apps, whatever can keep you informed. You want to be aware of that and set up a protocol for doing that. You know, when are you going to listen? What times are you going to listen to? Just set up something that you know that this is the way we're going to operate if, you know, the emergency happens, or if we're within an event. Don't forget those emergency contacts. I'm not going to go over that again, but you do need to, you know, have those with you. Your evacuation kits, make sure you got that. The essential supplies, water, food, medications, documents, anything that you need to take with you during your evacuation. Put it in a kit, get it ready. So all you got to do is grab it and go. It could be a suitcase, could be a backpack, anything where you know it's there and you can grab it and go ahead and go with it. Make sure everybody knows their responsibilities. Even the kids can be responsible for something. If you have children, maybe they're responsible for getting the pet or whatever. The wife's responsible for the clothes. You're responsible for the kits, and just give everybody a job so that they have something to do, so they're not sitting there anxious and awaiting for the event to happen or for something to go wrong or everything. If you can get people educated, their anxiety is not as bad. If I know what to do, I'm not as worried about what to do. So let people have some responsibilities. Let them do something. Practice that evacuation drill. If it's getting out of the house for a fire, practice that. If it's getting in the car and driving, get in the car on a Sunday afternoon and drive your evacuation plan. Look at some things as a family of, you know, what may be troublesome or what may be a benefit to you as you go down the path to where you want to go. Let's talk about safe meeting points. You know, we all talk about that, but you know, what are they and where, you know, what can they be? Well, first off, you need a primary one, and it needs to be something that's outside the home, but close enough in proximity that it's easy accessible to all family members. So remember, we had special needs, special conditions with elderly or children. So this again plays into factor here by the meeting place. You know, if Grandpa has a hard time, you know, getting around without a walker or whatever, we want to make the meeting place accessible for them to get there. For the kids it's easy to know how to get there. It's easy for them to get there because they, face it folks, they may get separated and need to find that safe meeting point to get back reunited with mom and dad. And once you have that one established, go ahead and establish a secondary meeting place. somewhere that's a little bit farther, maybe a little bit harder to get to, but don't make it too hard. Just so everybody knows that if nobody's at the first one, or maybe the first meeting place has become a, say it was a telephone pole and a car had hit it to knocking out all the power, and your meeting place was there. Well, have another meeting place so people can see the first primary and say, oh, we can't meet there. Maybe it's underwater due to a flood or something, and go on to that secondary meeting place. And it has to be, fairly close, but choose your primary first and then your secondary a little bit farther away than what your first one is. Use specific landmarks, especially if your meeting point is kind of away from wherever you're at, your home or whatever it is. Some landmarks, especially for the kids, because the kids don't know east and west. They don't know anything about that, but they may know where Johnny lives. Well, you go past Johnny's house and you're going down to the street corner down there and meet under the street sign or something like that. Something that's easy for everybody to remember under pressure, because when something happens, you're going to be under pressure, and to have this information already known and to have practiced it will actually get folks a whole lot easier and less anxious for what may happen or what's to come. So use those specific landmarks. Make sure, if you can, use public locations, community center, school, library, anything like that, where there's probably going to be some people there to take care of the kids if they get there before you. So use those type of locations, and to have those locations probably already have some type of emergency procedures in place to take care of people and to take care of things if an event actually happens. Don't forget, now you may be at work and you're going to need some workplace meeting points. Now I don't know exactly how you would do that. Maybe for your co-workers, if there's a fire, you're going to meet so and so. I know most all businesses has some type of fire evacuation route, but a lot of times they miss putting in there the safe point, the meeting point where everybody's accounted for. I can remember back when I was on a volunteer fire department, and I'm not going to say what department or where, but they had obtained a old house that was going to be tore down, so the owner offered it to be burned as a training situation. And so we set up, and they had soaked the inside with some type of flammable liquid, and then they set it on fire while we were inside. Well, nobody thought about counting how many went inside, and I happened to be third on the hose, and as the first two people peeled off, they were either getting too hot, had to move, or one of the ladies that was in front of me, she got scared and she had to move. And so I was on the hose, and as people started filing out, they didn't think about how many were in there. They didn't count them as they came out, and someone actually pulled the hose out of my hands and the hose disappeared, because normally you can follow the hose back out. And I know a lot of you firefighters are going to maybe listen to this and say, well, that was the stupidest thing that ever happened. Well, you're absolutely right. It surely was. And it could have potentially cost me my life. But I remembered that when we went in, we made a right, left, and then a right to where we were supposed to be. And I just reversed those and crawled back out to safety. And when I was out there, everybody was looking for, where's Pastor Jack? Where's Pastor Jack? Everybody's looking for me. I finally came out. Everything was okay. I got a few, hot spots on my body, but other than that, everything was good. But always be aware of how many people are supposed to be at that meeting point. If of course, in a smaller family, it doesn't matter. But if you're in a workplace and there's 25 or 30 people, well, you need to account for all of them at that safe meeting point. Review and update. Always review your plans and update them, practice them. Make sure that you're ready to go for anything and everything that may be thrown at you. I know we can't prepare for all of it, but we can prepare for some of it. So remember, again, your mindset gets you through the chaos and into the solution. Are you prepared? Well, let's take a look at some of the what I would think would be basic survival skills that you need to know. And most of these are skills that if you don't have them, you can watch YouTube, you can read books, you can take classes to help you to get through this. But some of the essential things that you need to know are, number one, is you need to know how to build some type of shelter. Whether it's an emergency tarp, a debris shelter, a lean-to, whatever it may be. Learn how to construct a simple shelter and try to use natural materials to start with, like branches and leaves and limbs and debris and stuff like that. That way it doesn't take any of your resources out of your go bag to make it happen. And understand the importance that shelter has for you, because it's going to give you protection against the elements. So be aware of what's going on. And remember, we talked about the weather and things like that in your preparedness plan, that you need to know about those. Think about the weather. If you're a place where it's going to snow, then your shelter needs to be where it would hold some snow if the snow came and started packing on top of it. Or if the wind blows, it needs to be pretty solid, so the wind doesn't blow it down, or the wind doesn't blow through it and cause you to be cold inside your shelter. And practice building one of these shelters somewhere. If you don't have access to a piece of land where you could do that, then go over it at the house and use pillows and sticks and things like that for your debris and your natural items that you could use out in the actual building of the shelter. The next thing, once you have shelter and stuff and that, you need to know how to start a fire. There's lots of ways to do that. A lot of people, especially, and like I know in my bug out bag, I've got several compact lighters, little compact butane lighters, some waterproof matches. I also have some cotton balls that have been soaked in Vaseline. I've got some lint out of the dryer. Those are all good fire starting material. And then you need to learn how to do that. It's pretty easy just to light it with a lighter or light it with a match, but practice the bow drill. How to start a fire with a bow drill. How to start a fire with a fire plow. Those are things, and if you're not familiar with those, look them up on YouTube. YouTube is a wealth of resources, and I hope that you're taking a look at our video cast over on YouTube also, Prepared Faith. And then we also have a website, www.preparedfaith.com, where you will have some information, and you can find the transcripts to all these video casts and podcasts. So be able to start a fire from modern method with matches and lighter to all the way to the primitive methods. The primitive methods. But make sure you're proficient at those. And like I say, if you've got a place where you can practice that, then definitely practice that, because one of the things you're going to need is fire, and be able to build it and maintain it safely. That's the key word right there, safely. So then after that, we need to learn how to find and purify water. Understand the methods of purification, such as boiling, water purification tablets, improvising filters for water. And so learn how to find water available. If you're walking across a arid strip and you see greenery out somewhere, then that's pretty likely there's going to be some type of water over that direction. Learn these things, and again, vast resources on YouTube on how to do that, how to make a pure water purification system, how to do that in the wild and out in the elements. So you need to know how to build a shelter, build a fire, and purify your water. And then take a class somewhere, if you don't already know, how to navigate with a compass. Compass navigation can get tricky at times, but you need to have a compass in your go bag and need to know how to navigate with that compass and learn how to read the azimuth and shoot an azimuth so that you can walk to that place and then shoot another azimuth to get to where you need to go. Learn how to estimate distances. There's some cheap range finders out there. Get a hold of one and shoot some ranges, and then look at them with the naked eye and see if you can call the range on it. Once you have it kind of an idea, go out somewhere that's not familiar to you and look at something and say, well, that's 150 yards out there. Then shoot it with your rangefinder and see how close you were. Learn how many steps to get for a mile. That's pretty much close to about 2,000 steps to get in a mile. You learn these things, learn some distances, learn how to estimate the range of things. If you're out on a long walk and you're having to walk out for evacuation, and you can set a distance of that hill over there looks to be about a mile away. So let's make that, and we'll make camp there. We'll find a place for camp there. So estimate your distances and learn how to navigate with a compass. And of course, basic first aid, that's one of the things that you need to know. You need how to clean a wound, how to bandage a wound, possibly CPR, dealing with common injuries as splints or breaks or sprains and things like that. And put together a compact first aid kit that you can grab. And if you put things in that first aid kit, make sure you know how to use them. Whether it's a Band-Aid, a suture kit, a tourniquet, whatever you put in there, make sure you know the correct way to use that. Then on top of that, the next thing is I would recommend knowing the wilderness food in your area for foraging. Get a book or something that shows you the edible plants. Like I live along the Texas Gulf Coast. Well, I would be looking for a book that shows edible plants for the Texas Gulf Coast. And so I would know what I could eat. And another very important part of this, you know what not to eat. A lot of times the color red in nature means, stay away from it. So be aware of that. Be aware of what plants you can eat and where you can find those plants, because they may come to a point where you need those to survive. Learn some knots. Learn some basic knot tying so you can put together knots. If you tie a knot to your tarp and trying to make a shelter there, well, you know what? It may simply come undone during the night when the wind's blowing. So know how to tie a knot and know which knots to use in what circumstance. Where do I use a bowline, or where do I use a square knot? How's that going to hold up? Think about things before you put those knots in place for you. Learn how to signal for help. 3 dots and a dash, 3 dashes repeatedly is an SOS. Learn how to show help. Maybe even learn how to signal with a mirror, how to signal with a fire and smoke. Some of these things, know how to signal for help. If you are out and you need help and you don't know how to access help, if you see something, maybe you see a plane flying over and you're on a deserted island, how do you signal that plane? Smoke, mirror, something that would go ahead and grab that pilot's attention so he would be willing to take a look, maybe even turn around and circle the island to see what's going on. But make sure that you can signal for help. Learn the different ways to signal. Learn how to make tools and weapons out of anything that's laying around. A good straight stick makes a good spear. Harden the end in the fire, and that way it stays sharper and stuff like that. Learn how to create your basic tools and weapons from natural materials, stone, wood, or even bone. If you find some bones, you can make some tools out of it. Understand the principles behind the tool that you're using so your construction will be useful. So you need to figure out, well, I need a shovel. Well, how do I make a shovel? Or I need an axe. Well, how do I get an axe? You sharpen a rock, tie it to a stick, and start chopping. You got an axe. And be aware of the weather. We've talked about the weather a lot, and it's really important. Whether you're traveling in a car, whether you're walking, or whatever it is in your evacuation plan, or standing outside if the apartment's on fire or whatever, be aware of the weather. Throw something in your go bag to keep the rain off of you. Make sure you grab something to keep you warm if it's cold. Those are things that the weather depends a lot on. Well, the weather doesn't, but you depend a lot on what to do, however the weather is going on there. So get an understanding of basic clouds and weather patterns, and know what type of year it is. Like in the fall, it's going to be colder, and wintertime it's going to be cold, and springtime, and those are seasons where, you know, in the spring you may want to take a jacket, but you may not ever need it. Same thing in the fall. Just be aware of what season it is. Be aware of what type of weather you're having, and make it specific to your area. Now, I know here on the Gulf Coast, we usually have some afternoon showers. It can be really humid. It can be foggy in the morning. So these are things that are, you know, come to play when you're making that preparedness plan, and also in your survival. So make sure you know about the weather, keep an eye on the weather, and just watch it, folks, because down here in Texas we have what they call the blue norther blows in, and it may be 70 degrees, and then all of a sudden 2 hours later it's down in the 40s or 30s when one comes through. So it can get cold fast, and I'm sure wherever you're at you have different seasonal patterns and different things that happen during the cold or during the hot and stuff. So be aware of your weather, know what it's doing, and know how to read it. Don't forget to learn how to make some emergency cordage. Learn how to weave some fibers of some plants together to make a rope. Make a grapevine into a rope, or use grapevine to secure things. Learn how to make that rope from natural materials such as plants and fibers and things like that. Learn how to braid, so you could, if you find some material, you could braid a rope. Understand the importance of having a strong and durable cordage for various tasks. If you don't have any rope, you have to make one to hold your tarp up, or to hold your supplies up for, if you're in bear country, to put your supplies up. And that brings us to the next thing. Know about animals. Know about the animal tracking, and aware of what animals in your part of wherever you're at. Here in South Texas, you know, we got rattlesnakes. Got to watch for rattlesnakes. We got feral pigs. We've got some things like that could really interfere with you if you have to be walking. Now, driving cars not too bad, but there you have to worry about running over a feral pig or running into a deer, and that would incapacitate your vehicle in such a way you'd be walking. So be aware of all the animals. Learn some of the tracks. Learn what a deer track is. Maybe you got to track that deer so you can have something to eat that evening. You and your family are hungry. Learn those tracks. Learn some of them so you know which ones are which, and what's going on. Study the animals a little bit. When you're out in nature, watch the animals. They'll know what's going on. But be able to track and identify several different signs and tracks of the animals themselves. The next one is self-defense. Learn a little bit of self-defense. And so, well, I got my gun with me. I can take care of myself. Well, what if you can't get to your gun and somebody grabs you? How do you get out of from the behind chokehold, or things like that? How do you get away from somebody? How do you present yourself when someone's got a knife or a gun, or these self-defense basics can save your life and the life of your family. So know some self-defense techniques that'll protect you in an emergency. Understand the importance of improvising tools here again for self-defense this time, not for survival, but for self-defense. Learn that the corner of a book or a notebook is really handy when you're trying to deter a combatant. So a screwdriver can become a quick sticker real fast. So things like that. And be aware of what's around you. If you're walking down the road, heads on a swivel, look at things, possibility of, I might need to hide behind that, or I might need to use that as a club, or and you don't have to make a big deal out of it, but every once in a while, think about these things, because you never know when something like a major event is going to come into your life. One of the last things here is your mindset and attitude. Remember, the mindset gets you through the chaos and into the solution. Cultivate a positive and resilient mindset. Understand the importance of staying calm, making rational decisions. And as you develop that mindset, that will help you through a lot of events. Practice communication skills. Some of us would be afraid to get on the camera like I am right now because of the communication skills. Some people are shy about talking in a room full of people or in front of people. But practice the effective communication between you and others around you. Don't be afraid to talk with someone. Don't be afraid to not talk with someone also. Know how to use devices and watch your body language. Communication is not only verbally, but the body language. Learn how to read body language a little bit. That'll tell you a lot about a person before they ever get within a close enough distance to do you harm. Learn that body language. All right, that pretty well does it. Remember, be proficient in some of these skills and practice. And you try to get some experience in it, whatever it is. Hone these basic survival skills so you can actually be a significant plus in the event something does happen to you and your family and you have to bug out or you have to get away from the house or whatever may come into your life, that you're able to handle the changing situations around you. And to do that, you have to practice. Practice outdoors if you can. Practice having a mock emergency, whatever it is. Let yourself know what's going on and keep your head on a swivel. Learn how to build a shelter, build a fire, purify water. Learn these things, the self-defense. Take a little bit of time to practice these things and learn these things in the event that you might have to use them. So be aware of that. And let's call this podcast right here. I wanted to keep it about 30 minutes or so. So letting you know, this is Pastor Jack. Are you prepared? www.preparedfaith.com. Make sure you go and check us out. Leave us a note at the contact page. But are you prepared?